Hello students, welcome to the answer writing program. So today we will be discussing 3 questions on these 2 topics from GS2, the constitutional bodies and the non-constitutional bodies. So let's take an overview of all the 3 questions. So the very first question is related to election watchdog, that is ECI, Election Commission of India. Second question is related to GST Council. The third question is related to Lokpal and Lokayuktas. So let's start with the very first question. The question says that the recent judgment of the Supreme Court related to the appointment of the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners is a welcoming step. But several other issues still affecting the functioning of the institution. So we need to discuss this statement that the recent Supreme Court judgment with related to the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioner is a welcoming step, but still there are the other issues existing in the Election Commission of India. So that is a problem. We need to discuss that. Also suggest necessary reforms to strengthen the election watchdog. So the major demand of the question is this one, and the second demand is about reforms. So if you get the context, you can use it in introduction itself. That what is the judgment related to Election Commission of India with respect to the appointments in the introduction itself. So what you can write in the introduction, that this judgment is Anup Barnwal case of 2023 has introduced the collegium system for the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and the 2 other election commissioners. And this collegium system includes PM, Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha and the Chief Justice of India. So now this will be the system that would recommend the names of Chief Election Commissioner and the 2 election commissioner to the President. So what is the current scenario with respect to the appointments? In 324 articles, in the 324 article number in Constitution, it is written that there is a Election Commission of India and there will be a Chief Election Commissioner plus 2 other election commissioners, and their appointment is done by President subject to the provisions made in a law by the Parliament. Made by law of Parliament. It means the appointments of these authorities will be done by President subject to the provisions made by the law of Parliament. It means if there is any existing law with respect to the appointment of these authorities, then the authorities will be appointed via that particular law. Till that time the law is not there, the President will appoint these authorities. But still, even after 73 years of independence, there is a legislative vacuum with respect to the appointments of CEC and 2 ECs. So that is why Supreme Court has come in front and said that there is a legislative vacuum, and for the proper governance or for the proper election machinery for the free and fair election, the election process or the appointment process of these authorities should be strong and independent. That is why not on the not directly by the President in the vacuum of the legislative law, but by the collegium system. So this is the current Supreme Court judgment. Now this is the question. So this is a welcoming step that the collegium will have a say. They will recommend President to appoint these authorities. So this is the welcoming step, but still there are other issues prevalent in Election Commission of India. This is the major demand of the question. So let's move on to the first demand, issues that still exist in Election Commission of India. Now that the appointment process is somewhat sorted now, But there are the other issues with respect to the removal process. In Constitution, it's written that CEC will be removed as per the Supreme Court judge, but other election commissioners will be removed on the recommendation of CEC. So there is an issue in the removal process of ECs. Then comes the financial dependence. The Election Commission of India and the charges or the expenditures are the voted expenditure. It means they are dependent on the parliament for their expenditure process. It should be made charged expenditure. So this is what we can write in the reforms required. Next is about secretariat. There is no permanent or the proper secretariat which can assist Election Commission of India. Next is about the power to deregister. In section 29A of RPA 1951, Election Commission of India has the power to register the political parties, but they do not have the power to deregister political parties if they do not do well. Next is about the security of tenure. There are no constitutional provision with respect to the security of tenure for these election commissioners and the CEC and ECs, so that they can function independently. So these are some issues. What we can have to write in the reforms? So in reform, in election commission, so whatever the issues are, if we write the reforms that how it can be corrected, then those would be the reforms in election commission. So the very first issue is about the removal process. So what are the reforms with respect to the removal process? Is about that Dinesh Goswami committee has recommended that the election commissioners removal should be at par with the CECs only, like Supreme Court judges. So this is the reform which is required as far as removal process is concerned. Second is about the financial independence. NCRWC has recommended that the expenditure should be the charged expenditure, not the voted expenditure. Next is about the independent secretariat. For the freely functioning or the independent and the strong functioning of Election Commission of India, we can create All India Election Services, so that there will be the permanent cadre of the election machinery, and there are the civil servants in those election services are there. Next is about power to deregister. Law Commission in its 255th report had said that the Election Commission of India should delegate the power to deregister the parties also. Not only about the registering of the political party, but they should be given the power to deregister the parties also. Moving on to the conclusion. So what we can write in the conclusion, that there is a need to strengthen this Election Commission of India to conduct free and fair election, which is very much essential for the vibrant and robust democracy. And also, the strong and independent Election Commission is required to safeguard the integrity of electoral process. So you can write this in conclusion. Moving on to the model answer, starting with Anup Barnwal case and the recommendation of NCRWC and the second ARC, that were long standing demands for their appointment process, then issues, then comes to the reforms, and finally the conclusion. There is also the additional information given in your model answer. Do go through that. So moving on to the next question. The GST Council is the crown jewel in India experiment with the cooperative federalism. So this is the context given in the question. How the composition and functioning of the GST Council reflect the spirit of the cooperative federalism? This is the question. So in introduction, you can start with the basics or the establishment of the GST Council, that this GST Council has been established via 279 article 279A article in Constitution via 101 Constitutional Amendment Act, and it was made as a forum for deciding the various matters in the GST implementation. So this is about the basics of the GST Council, which you can write in the introduction. Now the major demand of the question is that the GST Council's composition and the functioning is such that it reflects the cooperative federalism spirit. It means we need to focus on how the composition and the functioning is in such a way that it reflects or it smoothen out or it boosts the cooperative federalism spirit. So this is the major demand of the question. Moving on to the body part, about the first major demand, that how it reflects the spirit of the cooperative federalism. The very first is about the representation. Representation in the GST Council, it means the members of the GST Council are from both central government and the state government. Let's say like from the central government, Union Finance Minister is there, and from the state government, Minister of Finance or the taxation from all the states are there in the GST Council. So the representation that includes the members from both the level of the federal units are there. That is why it is promoting the spirit of the cooperative federalism. Next is about the decision making. The decision making in the GST Council is via the consensus building, or the consensus based decisions are there. The decisions are made after the 3/4 majority or 3/4 majority approval is required to pass some resolution. Next is about the voting power. The central government has the voting power of 1/3, means the 1/3 votes are with the central government and the 2/3 votes are with all the state governments. It shows that how significantly the state government has the power in the decision making. They can influence the decisions. Next is about the dispute resolution. Now the GST Council is a forum where there can be the proper dialogues, negotiations and mutually agreeable solutions can take place. Then coming on to the next part, addressing regional imbalances. Like GST Council is made in such a way that it also looks to the regional disparities or the regional issues as well. Like in the case of 2018 Kerala floods, GST Council has allowed the Kerala government to impose the extra cess so that they can take care of the flood situation. Also, they have made the compensation cess and the GST compensation fund to address the revenue shortfall due to the implementation of the GST in the initial phases. So these are like addressing the regional disparities or the revenue shortfalls also. Moving on to the conclusion, what we can write in the conclusion is that after the implementation of GST, like GST has improved, or GST implementation has resulted into the unified and the harmonized tax regime, and this has also shown how to improve or the boost on up of the spirit of cooperative federalism, where they got the platform or the forum for deciding the various issues, where they can negotiate, where they can make a dialogue, where they can come up on the mutually agreeable solution. So this was the second question. Moving on to the model answer, it's about the very first thing about the introduction of GST Council, about 279A article via 101 Constitutional Amendment Act, then how it reflects the spirit of the cooperative federalism. Finally, coming on to the conclusion. Moving on to the next question. The third question says that the Lokpal and Lokayuktas, despite having powers, are not able to realize their mandate and thus have become the clawless tiger. It means the powerless tiger. Discuss the issues and suggest the measures to be taken to revive the institution. So the question is saying that yes, they have the powers, but they do not realize their potential or they do not fulfill their mandate. That is why, and because of certain issues, this is not done. So what we need to take the measures so that they can fulfill their mandate. So for what they have been established. So in introduction, what you can write? In introduction, you can write about the basics or the origin of Lokpal and Lokayuktas. So you can write some background, or you can write some like from where they take the power, that Lokpal and Lokayuktas, Lokpal at center and Lokayuktas at state level, these institutions have been established via Lokpal and Lokayukta Act 2013. Despite granting them powers, still they are not fulfilling their mandate. So we need to write down their issues with respect to Lokpal and Lokayuktas. This would be the first body and the first demand of the question. So why there are issues? What are the arguments in favor of that? So the very first thing is about the lack of constitutional backing. As we have seen in the GST Council, that the GST Council is established via 279A article via 101 Amendment Act. It means now the GST Council has the powers in the constitution. It is a constitutional body now. But with respect to Lokpal and Lokayukta, it lacks the constitutional backing. It means it is getting the power via some act. And obviously, the constitutional bodies have such more powers more than the bodies or the statutory bodies which are made from the acts. So first of all, lack of the constitutional backing. Along with this lack, there are the political interferences also. Like there is a selection committee to select these Lokpal and Lokayukta that consist of the political parties members as well. So for what purpose this Lokpal and Lokayuktas were formed? They were formed to inquire into the cases of corruption against the public servant. And also the Prime Minister is also included in this ambit of Lokpal and Lokayukta. But what if their selection or their appointments are done by the political party itself? It means they can put their persons, their favorite persons in the select committee at the Lokpal and Lokayuktas, so that they can hamper this inquiry process. So their appointments are not independent. They are dependent on the political parties. So this is the issue with respect to their appointments also, that first of all, there is a lack of constitutional backing. Also, there are the political interferences. So this is the reason that there are the delays in appointments, first of all. And second is about there are the budgetary constraints as well. So next is about the lack of autonomy. The lack of autonomy or the lack of powers in taking the decisions. So in taking out the investigation and also the timely implementation to address these inquiries. So due to the lack of autonomy, like there are the limited decision making, this results into the delays in investigation and actions against corruption. Next is about they cannot take the suo motu proceedings against the corruption charges. Next is about there are the lack of resources, lack of infrastructure. There is no prosecution wing for that. There are no special courts for their proceedings. Next is about the lack of political will. If the Lokpal and Lokayuktas are recommending something and they are giving the suggestions that this public servant has done this, even the lack of the political will, they are not accepting those recommendations and they are not implementing on that. Next is about the inherent incapacity of the law. It means the law with which they have been made, these institutions have been established, there are the inherent incapabilities in that particular law. The very first is about there are the heavy punishment for the false complaint. Next is about non-acceptance of the anonymous complaints. It means they have to put their names on that. Next is about there is a 7 years limitation on the filing complaints. So this put bar on the proper implementation of the inquiries against the public servant. And there are also other issues prevalent, like lack of digitization. Judiciary is not included in Lokpal and Lokayuktas. Next is about non-alignment of the state laws with the central act, and also there is a non-alignment in the different Lokayuktas in the different states. Next is about again the bureaucratic hurdles are there. Coming on to the second demand of the question is about the measures required to revive these institutions. So first, we need to strengthen the legal framework. We need to give them resources. We need to give them authority, autonomy to implement their powers or to implement their decisions. Next is about we need to reduce or avoid the governmental interference in their decision making process, in their appointment process. So we should do the criminal culpability for the government interference. Next is about we can also give dedicated cadre of officers to this Lokpal and Lokayuktas. Next is about uniform mechanism across all the states with respect to the Lokayuktas. Next is about accountability mechanisms for their actions, like for the responsibilities or the actions that Lokpal and Lokayuktas are carrying out. We need to put a accountability measure on that as well. So for that, one independent oversight body can do that thing. Finally, coming on to the conclusion. So what we can write in the conclusion is about the importance of the freely functioning and the independent and the strong institutions of Lokpal and Lokayuktas for the transparent carrying out of the inquiries or to address the corruption issue, and also for the good governance. So this you can write in the conclusion part. Moving on to the model answer, starting with the from where these institutions are getting the powers, finally the issues and measures. You can also write some case study to fetch more marks, and finally with the conclusion. So that is it for today. We have discussed 3 questions on constitutional and non-constitutional bodies. So this is it from my side. Thank you and have a nice day, and keep writing.